Hey guys, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is part 2 of using this adorable little Dollar Tree potion sign. If you guys missed part 1, that's totally okay. You don't have to watch part 1 first necessarily, so go ahead and watch this one all the way through and then head over and watch part 1. Now the reason I split this into 2 parts was 1, so that the video would not be super duper long, but 2, because today we're going to be making this sign 2-sided. Now when I saw this sign in Dollar Tree, I had 3 really fun ideas for it and I wanted to execute all of them, but I was like, you know what, I think I can get away with just buying 2 signs and making one of them double-sided. That way I don't have to buy a third one, but I still get to do all of the ideas that I have. So again, part 1 for this video is already out, where I DIY'd the potion bottles into a wreath, and it is Hocus Pocus inspired, so if that is a movie that you love, please head over there and check it out after this video. But for today, I'm gonna be showing you guys 2 ways to DIY this sign, even though it's super cute as is. So I have 2 ideas for you today using the exact same sign. One is Nightmare Before Christmas inspired and one is Disney villains inspired. So depending on which one you prefer, I do have timestamps in the description box below for you guys. And if you want to watch both, that's even better, because you love me. Without any more chit chat, let's jump into how I did it. Okay guys, I have a huge bone to pick with Dollar Tree because this sign is on their website and I got so excited because I was like, good, it's gonna be there for you guys. The bad news is this sign was the normal price last year, $1 or $1.25. I can't remember when the price increase was, but now they're labeling this as a bonus item, meaning it's $3 for one sign. I'm really hoping that's not the case in the store and maybe it's just that way online because this sign was so popular. But if not, I'm sorry guys, I feel very disappointed. So starting with the front of the sign, I'm going to use the decorated side for the Nightmare Before Christmas idea. So I'm first going to detach all of the potions. Be sure to set these little strings off to the side somewhere where you're not going to lose them. I did misplace them for my Hocus Pocus craft, but it didn't really matter because I didn't need them. And then we're going to start by taking the glitter off of the main sign. I have this little paint chisel, and this is the best method I've found to get the glitter off. It's just the fastest way. You do have to be careful because if you push down too hard, you can like dent into the sign or put a hole in the sign. So if you're scared of doing that, you can always pick up a sanding block from Dollar Tree. Those work really well too. It just takes a little bit more patience to get all of the glitter off. Now that all the glitter is off of our sign, we're going to go ahead and base coat it with this elephant gray chalk paint. I am going to do a top coat on this in white chalk paint, but I do think that you could use white acrylic paint and it would work just as well because the top coat is so thin. The goal of this is really just to cover up all of the words on the sign, and as you can see here, one coat wasn't really enough, so I am going to go ahead and do a second coat once it's dried, but I'm going to start on the potion bottles as well. These I didn't sand down. It probably would have helped a little bit to sand them down, but I didn't even think of it until this moment right now. So I'm going to go ahead and give all of these one coat of that elephant gray paint and then allow it to dry probably about 30 minutes, and then I'll do a second coat. So now I'm going ahead with my second coat. I'm going to go ahead and speed through this though because I'm just painting. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wait for all that to dry, but once it is dry, we're going to start distressing the bottles. So I am taking an old, really cheap paintbrush and I'm just kind of rubbing remnants of black paint all over it. I do try to follow the curve of the bottle, but I got a little bit lazy and just kind of started swiping it everywhere. I also decided to use a little bit of white on this, but it was a very stark contrast. So if you're not liking the look of that, maybe try a lighter gray. I am also going to do the same method with a moss green color, and to me that was really what gave it that Nightmare Before Christmas type of look. I also use my finger to kind of smudge the paint around, and then I'm taking a very thin paintbrush and filling in the cork. I did decide to do all of the corks in black because that's what they look like in the movie. So you just see me filling that in, and then I am taking, this is the moss green color I was talking about. Again, this is chalk paint, but I definitely think you could easily do this with acrylic paint. I just happen to have this on hand. And you can just see me kind of swirling it around, swiping it around. No real science to it, just doing it the way that I think it looks good. I did do the same thing to the sign, but I cut it because I'm actually going to paint it all over anyway. And next I'm going to be doing the label. So I did give this like just 2 minutes to dry, and then I'm going in with a pencil and drawing a oval shape for the label on the bottle. And then I'm going to fill that in with some white chalk paint. I believe I had to do 2 coats of the white just to make sure that it was thick enough where the gray wasn't poking through. And next I'm going to go in on that skinny bottle and I'm going to do some thin black lines where the little bumps on the bottle are. I hope that makes sense. I'm just trying to add kind of more of like a 3D effect for it and some depth to it, and then I'm going to also fill in the cork. Now, once again, I did feel like it was a little bit too defined, so I went back in with some gray and just kind of scratched over the black to dull it down a little bit. And on the third bottle, we're gonna again paint the cork black and do the same type of distressing. This is just a close-up of what the top of that bottle looked like. Sorry, the camera's going a little crazy here. I am going to finish distressing these and also adding white labels onto the rest, but I wanted to show you guys what I originally did on the sign just in case you prefer it this way. I did go in with a pencil and write out Sally's Soup Kitchen, and I also added some little swirl designs that you can see on the bottle labels in the movie. And then I'm going to take a black paint pen and outline this. Now, I didn't prefer how this looked because I felt like the black on the dark gray was just too hard to read. It's showing up pretty good on camera right now, but once it dried, I just wasn't really a fan of it. So I ended up like scrapping this and starting over and just painting over all of this. Now going back to the bottles, I know those white circles didn't look super great before, so you're going to want a black paint pen or a thin black paintbrush in order to outline the perimeter of the label. It just makes it look so much nicer. And then I'm just taking my paint marker and writing out frog's breath and nightshade and worm's wart, I believe is the third one. And I'm just kind of doing my best to write out in the font. I am using a photo on my phone for reference, but obviously you could use a pencil and kind of like give yourself a guide. And then I went ahead and finished the other bottle labels as well. On the third one, you are going to see me add these little swirlies on the bottom. These are in the reference photos, and I think they're super cute and very Tim Burton-esque. Now, after allowing the paint pen to dry, I am going to go in with just this really light gray acrylic gray paint, and I'm just going to distress the labels because they looked way too clean. This also told me that you really didn't need to do 2 shades of the white on the label if you're going to distress it anyways. So, save yourself some time on that. And now I'm just going in and adding a few more distress marks where I felt like they were missing. Again, mostly focusing on using that mossy green color. I just really liked how it looked on top of the gray. Going back to the sign, I originally thought I was going to try to make it look like a label, so I took white chalk paint and I painted it into a rectangle, and I thought I was going to make it look like a label, but then I didn't really like that, so then I just covered the whole thing in white, allowing the gray to poke through because I did still want it to look super distressed. I went ahead and used a pencil just to write out Sally's Soup Kitchen. I tried to do kind of like a Tim Burton style font. I don't know if it worked, but I like it. And then I'm taking a very thin paintbrush and just tracing my letters in black. You could use a paint pen, but I like the look of painted letters by hand. I think it just looks a little bit less perfect, and that's what I was going for. So once I have all of these letters traced, I'm going to wipe off most of the paint off my brush, and I'm just going to go in and kind of thicken up some spots on it, as well as adding some shadows around them. Again, the goal of this isn't to be perfect. I'm just kind of trying to add some depth to the letters on the sign. And this is what it looked like when I was all done with my letters. So next we're going to do what I call burning the edges, where you take some black paint and you just kind of rub it along the edge of the sign. Again, this is just to provide some depth to our sign. What I'm using to do this is a Dollar Tree makeup sponge, those little wedge sponges. I just kind of dipped it in the paint and I'm just smearing it all over the edges. You could definitely do this with any sponge brush or a paintbrush. The key is just not to use too much paint. You want to make sure that it's kind of blending on the edges. Now that everything is all dry, we're going to go ahead and reconnect those potion bottles along with the string that goes at the top of the sign. So I'm just poking them through and reattaching them. That is it for the Nightmare Before Christmas side of the sign. You guys are going to have to let me know what you thought of this. Would you have done anything differently? Suggestions for the future for me? And then we're going to go ahead and move on to our Disney villains inspired sign that's going to go on the back. So for the Disney villain sign, I flipped my Sally's Soup Kitchen sign over. Obviously, I detached everything again to do this, and I'm going to paint this sign black. So I'm just using a sponge brush and some black chalk paint. I prefer chalk paint when I'm doing coats like this because the paint is so much thicker. Often I don't have to do as many coats. So like with the gray, we had to do 2 coats. If you were using acrylic paint, you're probably gonna have to do like 6 or 7 coats in order to cover up those words, if not more. And then I'm going to set that off to the side, and then I'm going to do the same thing with these bottles, but instead of using black, I'm going to be using white. Now, the reason that I'm base coating these in white is because all 3 of these bottles are going to be pretty colorful, and when you base coat in white, you're allowing that acrylic paint to really pop on the white background, as opposed to it getting soaked into whatever you're painting. So I'm just taking those potion bottles from the Sally sign, and I'm going to paint them all white. I did not do the edges in white. I left the edges gray from the first project. Now first we're going to start off with Yzma's potion bottle. I'm taking kind of an aqua blue color and painting the entire bottle aqua blue once that base white coat had dried. I do not paint the cork that color, so everything's going to be that blue except for the cork. And then to paint the cork itself, I'm using a mixture of a tan color along with a yellow color. So I am going to base coat it. I hate when I use the word base coat constantly. I'm going to top coat the cork in tan. And then in order to provide some texture to it, I mixed tan and yellow. So I already did the mixture, but I'm going to start out with the tan color and just very carefully paint the cork of the bottle. And then you don't need to wait for it to dry. You can move on to this next step immediately. I'm using a really tiny little brush just to stipple little dots all over the cork with a mixture of yellow and tan. That just provides more depth to the cork and makes it look a little bit more realistic, if you will. I'll go ahead and give you guys a close-up so you can see. That looks pretty real, doesn't it? So the good news is that acrylic paint dries super quickly when you're doing thin coats, and when you base coat in white, you allow yourself to be able to do that. So I pulled up a picture, a reference photo of these potion bottles just so that I kind of knew what I wanted to do. And I am going to go in with pink next because obviously the potion color is pink. So I'm trying to follow kind of the curvature of the bottle, and something that I think helps make these look a little bit more high end, that is such an exaggeration, a little better, is on the top of your potion, like the liquid inside of your potion.
You're going to want to round it out because that's what liquid looks like when it's in a container. So don't just paint this in like up and down strokes if that's going to matter to you. Try to kind of follow the curve of your bottle, and then when you're filling in the middle, you can just do up and down strokes like I am right here. This did take 2 coats, so right now I'm just kind of filling in the basic shape of the pink. And then I'm going to go in and really work on my brush strokes looking a little more accurate. So this is where I was talking about with those circular motions at the top portion of your potion bottle. Say that 10 times fast. And then again, just going in and making more vertical strokes underneath that top layer, if you will. I'm also taking my time on my edges and the bottom to try to make it look a little bit more level inside of this 2D potion bottle. If you guys need any help on this or you have any questions, always feel free to comment below and ask me questions. I'm really try to be great about getting back to you guys because I know how hard it is to craft when you have a question and you're scared of messing up. You can also DM me on Instagram if that's easier. Next, we're going to take some white on a super thin brush, and I'm just going to add some thin white lines on the grooves of the top of the bottle. This just makes it look a little bit more realistic again and adds some depth to the painting itself. This doesn't need to be perfect, and you don't want it to be too harsh. I'm also going to add kind of a shine line, if you will, along the curve of the bottle. Again, trying to make it look a little bit more 3D and less flat. If you do mess up on any of these steps, don't freak out. Remember, you can always just try to wipe it off and then maybe do a little bit of paint over it and try again. So next, now that that's dry, we're going to add the label with the little llama on it. I'm just going to do this using a square brush with white paint. All of the white that I'm using in this video is chalk paint because I actually don't have white acrylic paint or black acrylic paint. I only have chalk paint. But I'm just doing a rectangular label, trying to take my time with my edges. If you really want this label to look perfect, you could always tape it off, but in the movie it's not perfect, so I wasn't really worried about it. And then once that part is all dry, you're going to grab a pencil and go ahead and outline your little llama on the label. Now before we add the llama on the label, I'm actually going to set that off to the side to dry and start working on the Hades potion bottle. So for this one, I'm starting with the potion inside itself because I wanted the glass to look a little bit thicker, if that makes sense. Not quite so opaque as the Yzma bottle. So I'm starting off with the pink and I'm just kind of following the curves of the bottle again. I did this weird swoopy thing at the top, if you guys can see that. It's almost like a sweetheart neckline on a dress. I am going to fix that, so don't worry about that. But now I'm just going in with my brush again and trying to, again, add like that circular pattern so that it looks more like a liquid inside of a container. So it's more horizontal brush strokes, and then underneath that you can do more vertical brush strokes. I am using the exact same pink that I used for the Yzma bottle. So you don't need to pick up 2 pinks or mix anything different if you're doing this project. And then I'm going to pick up some white on a thin brush, but I did think that that was too stark, like too stark of a difference. So I'm actually going to mix some white paint with the pink in order to add some dimension into the potion. Now I didn't want to repaint the entire thing, so I just took my pink paintbrush and kind of swirled around the white until it went away. But as you can see here, I'm making a super pale pink color on the side, and then I'm going in and adding all of those little bubbles that are inside the potion from the movie. I am also going to make these look like little skulls because if you guys remember Hercules, that's what it looked like. They had little bubbles with little skulls inside. I mostly painted these in groups of 3 just because I think that looks appealing, but I didn't do all of them in groups of 3 because I also wanted it to look kind of random. But again, if you add a bubble and you don't like where it goes, just paint right over it. It'll be okay. We're going to speed this up a little bit. And next we're going to do the little faces. I didn't even wait for it to dry because I'm just using a super thin fine tip Sharpie pen and just drawing little eyes and nostrils. They look honestly more like aliens, but from far away it's fine. It's fine, guys. I did do that to every bubble in the bottle because I liked how it looked. And now we're going to go back to the Yzma Potion bottle. I'm touching up my pink paint just a little bit because it on top of that aqua blue did make it kind of purpley looking. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my little llama and paint that black. Now, originally I do start with a paint pen. It might have even been the Sharpie. I'm not 100%. It's the Sharpie. So I tried to use the little fine tip Sharpie, but I did not like how this looked. So instead, I grab a super thin paintbrush and just go ahead and fill in my tracing. Okay, so at this portion of the video is going to be a little odd. I forgot to zoom the camera back out, so I missed a lot of painting the Hades bottle when I finished it, and I didn't want to leave you guys hanging, so this is my way of showing you. So I'm tracing my Hades bottle onto a canvas right now so that I can show you guys like in the exact shape and form that the Hades bottle is in. This is the pink color that I'll be using. It's the same one I used in the video, and then the purple color. Both of these are Apple Barrel acrylic paints from Walmart. I am going to redo basically the entire thing other than the bubbles, but I just wanted to show you guys this just in case this was a more helpful angle. I figured why not include it, but I am starting with the actual potion within the bottle and that pink color, and I'm starting with the circular top and then moving my way down the edges, and I'm going to fill it in and then give you guys a close-up. Now, because I traced the bottle at an angle, my potion was at an angle, so I do end up straightening that out and making it look a little bit more even on the top. And next we're going to go ahead and mix this pink and purple color together for the color of the bottle. So the bottle in the movie is kind of like a lavender purple, or like a mauve-y type purple, so I am just mixing kind of equal parts purple and pink. And this is going to be the color for our bottle. Now, you don't want your brush to be super loaded up. Like right now, I have too much paint on my brush, so I am wiping off the excess on that paper plate. And then I'm just going to go in and kind of smooth out my edges and paint the entire bottle purple. Working on the canvas is a little bit different than working on the bottle itself because the paint absorbs differently in the canvas, but I wanted to show you guys, this is the bottle. I really liked the opaque look that I was able to achieve, so I'm taking a little bit of the pink color and painting the potion itself back over with more pink to try to give a translucent look to my bottle. So it's the deepest color of the bottle is on the edges, and then as I get toward the liquid inside, quote unquote, it gets a little bit of a lighter color purple. Next, I'm making a super light color mixing white with purple, and that is going to be what we're going to use to highlight the bottle and create kind of some lines. This is what the color looks like. It is a extremely light lavender color. I start by doing 3 lines at the neck of the bottle, and then I'm working kind of an angle, if you can tell, to give my bottle dimension. So I'm just trying to follow the natural lines of the bottle and just not connecting the lines. They're not physically connected, but they follow the same direction, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to try to get a little closer to the camera just so you guys can really see this. But I am just kind of smoothing out my edges and really blending in these lines so that they're not too harsh. And that's pretty much it for this. I painted the cork of the bottle that same elephant gray chalk paint that I used on the Nightmare Before Christmas bottles, and then I am taking a box cutter and curving the edges of the cork. I wanted it to look more rounded like a skull and less boxy. And next I went in with a pencil and just sketched out the face of the skull that's on the cork portion of the bottle. It's super simple. It's like 2 little slits for eyes that are kind of triangular shaped, and then the nostrils. And then I went ahead and filled those in with the same pink paint from earlier. I am also going to outline these using that black paint pen. And I used just a Q-tip to clean up any spots if it got too smudged. I did want to add just a little bit more texture to the top of this, so I took some light gray paint and I'm just kind of swiping my brush and smudging the paint along the edges of it. Moving on to the third and final bottle, this is the rounded one. I'm going to try to make this look like the poison apple, so like a poison from the evil queen, if you will. I do really wish that I had had green puffy paint for this one. I'll go ahead and link my DIY evil queen poison apple ear tutorial because I wanted to use the concept of those ears on this bottle, but I was completely out of green puffy paint because of those ears. So I already base coated this bottle white, obviously, and then I'm going to do a coat of red on the entire portion of the bottle. I did not wait for that red coat to dry, and now I'm going in while it's still wet with a lighter shade of red in order to add some dimension to the color. I did try to follow the curve of the bottle, and on this one in particular, I do think that that makes it look a little better. The part that I wish I had paid more attention to was the bottom of the bottle, and I wish I'd given the bottom of the bottle more of the curve because the green paint is going to cover the top, and I feel like the top portion of the curve looked a little better, and I end up covering it up anyway. So then I'm going to take a light green acrylic paint and I'm going to go ahead and start on the poison dripping down. This is why I think this would have looked so much nicer with puffy paint. If you are going to use puffy paint, I probably would just go ahead and do the acrylic paint too. So I would do the green acrylic paint as kind of a base coat, if you will, and then go over it all in the puffy paint to add that 3D texture. I honestly still might go ahead and do that, and if I do, I will try to post a picture on the community tab on YouTube and on my Instagram. So if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram, it's just DreamItDIY. But I really do want to add some puffy paint to this, guys. I also went ahead and sketched out the nostrils and the eyes with my pencil just to make sure that I didn't paint too far. I'm going to fast forward since I'm so awkwardly in the corner right now. This one, I just wanted the cork to look like a traditional cork. So after I finished the dripping poison, I went in with just a tan color of brown. This is the same color. Wait, when did I use this? Yes, this is the same color that I used on the Yzma bottle. And then I'm also going to stipple the lighter color onto it in order to make it look more like a cork material. That is the final step on the bottle, so I'm just going to set these off and let them completely dry. I do really love how these bottles turned out. You guys are going to have to let me know which one is your favorite down below. Now for the top portion of the sign, it did already say pick your poison, so you really could just leave the sign the way that it is. But I wanted to use a different font, and I also wanted to ombre my paint colors just to make it a little more of a colorful sign. So I went ahead and cut out a stencil using my Silhouette machine, and I'm just going to pick it up on some transfer paper and then lay it down on the sign. And remember, we already painted the sign black at the very beginning of this tutorial, so it is plenty dry by now. Now, I just assumed that this was the right size, and I laid down my stencil, and I go ahead and paint it and everything, and then I decided that the words were too small, so I'm going to redo the entire process, but I'm still going to show it to you guys, just for fun. So I centered it. This is what it looked like after I painted it. It was way too small, in my opinion, so I did decide to recut it, paint over it, do all the things. I just went ahead and went over it with black chalk paint, and then I'm going to try again. So as you can see here, it is much bigger the second time around. I used the transfer tape just to lay down my stencil, which was a little bit tricky with this particular vinyl. I honestly don't even know where I got this vinyl. I bought it so long ago. But once you have your stencil all laid down, we're going to go ahead and paint. So I am going to be using that same lime green color. I did make the wise choice of laying down some masking tape just to make sure that I didn't get paint on my sign where I don't want it. But we're going to start out with the lime green color, and I'm only doing the top portion of the first two words. So on Pick Your, I'm doing lime green, and then I'm going in with more of a like normal green or a medium green on the bottom. So again, I wanted this to ombre from lime green to a medium green. I think a dark green would also look really nice just in the contrast, but I was worried that if I did a dark green, it might not pop well enough on the black background. And then for the word poison, I'll be doing purple on the bottom and pink on the top, which I think turned out so cool looking. I really, really loved it. And you guys, this part's so easy. Like if you're nervous about it, I promise you the ombre effect is not hard to achieve. Just make sure you're using a sponge brush and make sure you're doing dabbing motions, not swiping motions. That will help the paint kind of mix together evenly, and also just make sure that your stencil doesn't bleed. Now this next part I argue with myself about all the time. I like to pull stencils off immediately because I feel like it is less likely for the stencil to allow the paint to bleed, but if it's going to mess up what you've done, it's really not worth it. So I did start to peel it off and then it tore in some places, and I didn't want to risk like messing it up anymore, so I pulled off what I could pull off easily and then left the rest and pulled that off later. Also, a little piece of advice, I think it would be wise to base coat the sign with some Mod Podge, and then you're not at as high of a risk to like rip the paint off when you take off the stencil. So this is what mine turned out like once it was all dry and I got the stencil off. I do really love how it turned out. I did have a few spots that I had to touch up paint with some black chalk paint just because, again, the vinyl ripped up the paint a little bit. I really do think if you base coated it with Mod Podge before doing the stencil, that would take care of it for you. Also, if you are wanting this to last a very long time, I would go ahead and Mod Podge over the sign and the bottles because that's just going to provide a layer of protection. And then once it's all dry, you can go ahead and reattach all your strings and the bottles and hang it up for display. This is the finished product on my third option for using this sign in a DIY in order to Disney-fy it. You guys are going to have to let me know which one was your favorite because I did the Hocus Pocus wreath, I did the Nightmare Before Christmas sign, and then this Disney villain sign, and I'm really curious which one you guys liked the most. So please let me know in the comments down below, and if you did not see my Hocus Pocus wreath, please go check out that video next. Thank you guys so much for watching, leaving me comments and likes. It is so helpful to my channel and helps my channel spread to more people. I really can't say thank you enough. Happy Halloween season, you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!